Welcome to the Canadian Research Security Weekly Roundup. It's Friday, February 27th, 2026, and here's what's on the radar for researchers across the country this week. So let's jump right in. We're going to start with a story that hits really close to home. What happens when a Canadian researcher becomes a target? Then we'll zoom out to look at Canada's big strategy questions. After that, we'll check out how these threats are playing out globally. Who's winning the tech race? And we'll finish with a stunning policy shift that has everyone talking. All right, our lead story this week really brings the whole idea of research security down to a very human level. It's a sobering reminder of the real dangers that academics can face when their work takes them overseas. And that's the critical question here, isn't it? At the heart of this story about a University of Toronto PhD student detained in Lahore is this. Was he just doing academic research, or did that research make him a target?
So, the details of Hamza Ahmad Khan's case are, well, they're deeply concerning. His PhD research was on democracy promotion. Pakistani authorities are claiming his social media posts, which were critical of leaders there, amounted to misinformation. You can see how academic work, especially on sensitive topics, can get reframed as a national security threat. It really puts a spotlight on just how vulnerable researchers can be. Okay, so moving from that very personal case, let's pull the lens back and look at the bigger picture right here in Canada. The entire research ecosystem is kind of at a crossroads, trying to figure out how to handle massive new funding while dealing with some very real risks.
First up, let's talk about the money. We're looking at a new defense industrial strategy, and the number is just staggering. $500 billion over the next 10 years. The big idea is to funnel that spending to Canadian companies to build up our own capabilities, and hubs like Montreal with their amazing AI and aerospace scenes are set to be big winners. And you know, this isn't just a theory. We're already seeing the money flow. Out on the West Coast, UBC just landed nearly $16 million for projects working on what's called dual-use tech. That's stuff that can be used for everyday things and for military applications. It's a really clear sign of where the government's priorities are heading. But here's the thing. While some sectors are seeing this huge influx of cash, others are facing cuts. The federal agriculture minister is defending a plan to close 7 research centers. His argument? By working more closely with universities, they can actually increase research output. It's a consolidation play, and it's definitely stirring up some debate. All this public money, though, brings up a really thorny question. See, a ton of our R&D funding goes to Canadian-based offshoots of foreign companies. The problem? The intellectual property, the valuable patents, often flows right out of the country to the foreign parent company. An op-ed in the Globe and Mail put it pretty bluntly, are we basically paying to have our own innovation commercialized somewhere else? And this really gets at a major tension. On one hand, we're building fantastic new infrastructure, like U of T's new wet lab incubator to help our own startups grow. Awesome. But on the other hand, we're stumbling with the technology we're already using on campus. We've had privacy breaches at McMaster with AI proctoring and hidden facial recognition tech in vending machines at Waterloo. It seems like our universities are adopting powerful new AI tools way faster than they can write the rules to manage them. All right, let's zoom out, because these challenges, they aren't just Canadian problems. Let's take a look at how these same research security threats are popping up all over the world. So get this, down in Australia, James Cook University is sounding a pretty loud alarm. They found that foreign agents are actually enrolling as fake students just so they can spy on sensitive research projects. It's a classic espionage move, happening right on campus. And in the world of AI, we're seeing a totally new kind of high-tech theft. Look at this playbook. The US firm Anthropic says its Chinese rivals created thousands of fake accounts to bombard their AI model Claude with millions of questions. Then, they basically used Claude's answers as a textbook to train their own AI. And what's really scary is that these copycat models probably don't have any of the original safety features built in. Meanwhile, over in Europe, there's this really fascinating contradiction going on. The European Commission has officially called Huawei a high-risk supplier, but the company is still a partner in 16 major research projects, working on super-sensitive tech like 6G and AI. And through those projects, they get access to shared intellectual property. It just shows how hard it is to untangle these deep research partnerships. You know, all of these stories, spies on campus, AI theft, tricky partnerships, they're really just individual moves on a much bigger geopolitical chessboard. The grand prize is dominating the world of science and technology. Let's look at the larger game. A huge battle is heating up over data itself. The Trump administration is telling its diplomats to push back hard against data privacy laws like Europe's GDPR. The US wants data to flow freely across borders, while Europe is all about data sovereignty and privacy. This is a fundamental clash over who gets to write the rules for the world's information.
And this friction is creating some interesting openings. After some pretty shocking US rhetoric about Greenland that really rattled Europe, China is now making a big diplomatic push to repair its scientific ties with European partners. And as some universities there start to re-engage, the US is going the other way, cranking up scrutiny of foreign funding on its own campuses. The pieces on the board are moving fast.
This competition is also literally redrawing the map of global research. Check this out. Europe's IMEC, often called the chip lab of the world, is expanding into the Middle East, setting up a new R&D hub in Qatar. It tells you that new centers of tech power are emerging, really challenging the old order.
And speaking of redrawing maps, that brings us to our final story today, and it is a surprising one. A really dramatic policy shift on foreign interference, coming straight out of Ottawa.
Okay, just look at this timeline. For the last couple of years, a public inquiry has officially labeled India a major interference threat. We expelled diplomats over it, and now, this month, a senior official says the government believes India is no longer engaging in interference here. I mean, that is a complete 180.
But, and this is a big but, not everyone is buying it, not by a long shot. Sikh advocacy groups are strongly disputing this new stance, saying that harassment and threats are still very much happening. And former security officials are also asking, how can a major threat like that just vanish overnight? And that really leaves us with the big question for the week. Was this a sign that a serious security threat has been genuinely resolved, or was it more of a geopolitical calculation, a decision to smooth over diplomatic relations, maybe at the cost of downplaying risks that are still very real for people in Canada? It's something to think about.